So let's bring in Paul Mueller, Senior Research Fellow at the American Institute for Economic Research.
You know, Paul, we hear the words tariffs being tossed around a lot nowadays. Could you explain to our viewers here exactly what tariffs are and how they're used as a punishment of sorts?
Well, tariffs are simply a tax on goods coming from outside the country. So you could think of it as a form of a sales tax in a sense. And so these tariffs are taxes on any time any avocado or tomato comes from Mexico. They're going to have to pay 25% tariff. When barrels of oil come across the Canadian border, it'll be the 10% tariff. And those will be duties or taxes that are levied on Canadian companies. But it's going to be borne by U.S. consumers to some extent as well, because prices are going to go up here in the U.S. on those products.
Let's talk about that, because that's the big question on everyone's mind this morning, right? How will these tariffs impact me? How does it impact my wallet? What changes do you think we'll see?
Well, it depends on how how long the tariffs are in place, but we're going to see a number of products go up in price. What we're going to see more of, though, I think, is just disruption in supply chains as companies are trying to figure out whether they want to continue importing these goods from Mexico or Canada, whether they want to import them from somewhere else. We're going to see what the Canadian and China and Mexican companies do. One of the downsides of this tariff is that it makes the U.S. a much less attractive trading partner, and it makes the rest of the world a more attractive trading partner for these countries.
That's very interesting. Canada, Mexico, China, all vowing to fight back. Canada plans to impose their own tariffs. Could this really be the start of a new trade war that could be brewing?
That's the fear, and I think it's not unwarranted. I mean, nobody fully understands what Trump is kind of going after here. I mean, he says that there's negotiating over fentanyl. It's a little bit unclear. It seemed that Canada and Mexico were both kind of agreeing to concessions back at the end of 2024. Going after these three countries, I think Trump has threatened tariffs on a number of other countries around the world, and so it's kind of unclear where he hopes this will go. And of course, these other countries, we have the risk of them banding together, responding and banding together and finding alternatives to the U.S. So it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of upside here. Again, maybe there's some three-dimensional chess I'm missing here. But from what I see, the outlook is relatively bleak in terms of how these tariffs are going to affect the U.S. position in the world, how it's going to affect the prices of various kinds of goods, and how it's going to affect our supply chains.
And Paul, to add to that, China is also threatening legal action against the U.S. They say that they're going to file a lawsuit with the World Trade Organization. Could they actually succeed there? And what would actually be accomplished by that move?
Well, it would very much damage the U.S. Moral position in the world. So the World Trade Organization has been around for many decades and has made a significant impact in reducing barriers to trade around the world. It's promoted a lot of globalization, a lot of growth. And the U.S. was instrumental in sort of creating that organization and being a major player in it. If China brings this lawsuit and they do well there, I mean, they can't force the U.S. government to do anything in particular, but it would certainly be a black eye when it comes to U.S. reputation and sort of moral leadership of the world when it comes to trade and setting the international example. So, again, I don't know all the ins and outs of exactly what China's bringing in that suit, but that has more of a moral standing and a global influence piece as opposed to any sort of direct legal ramifications for people in the United States.
Well, this is something we're definitely all going to be watching very closely. Paul Mueller, thanks so much for your insights.